Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here. No Bina, but I'm hoping, you never know, sometimes she's on vacation and, things are different over there. So let's hope, Yeah, she's not right. All right, well, we'll keep hoping. And we hope Norma can come. Just let Norma know. We're live. I hope Jessica comes. But Norma's not on either. No worries. No worries. All good. All good. I'll get going in a moment. Let me just share everything and get that going. Where we are in the story right now, we with Boynal and the Anomalies, and we're doing the capital R reading of this chapter, which is Biella's up early, earlier than usual. Not that she has a particular usual necessarily, because everything goes by appropriateness, but she's up very early and she's just thinking about things, just going over things, which is, she does it every day at the end of the day, but this is in the morning. But she's, that's, at the end of the day is typically a review of the day. And as I was explaining, it's actually a reliving of the incidents of the day that you wish to refine or improve or practice or fine tune or find alternatives to. And you do this review if like you're an actor and a director going over a scene and doing multiple takes of a scene, right? So you run it through in your mind and then you do it one way. Say, all right, let me try it this way. Let me try it that way, until you find ways, plural, which satisfy you as an improvement, right? And that's very, very powerful mechanism, and not just to find, one way that, oh, that's the best way. No, that thinking of the best, there isn't the best way to react to things. There's just multiple ways that are all appropriate. And if you practice that multitude, you practice the skill of being flexible and fluid and adaptable. And especially you practice the skill of being appropriate. Right? That's a huge, massive, wonderful skill. And the more you practice this, the more you're able to be appropriate in multiple situations. Develop the skill of being fluid and flexible, adaptable, as I said, right? The skill of appropriateness. This is a ridiculously powerful skill, just unbelievably potent. And it's what we are striving for. The greater we enhance our awareness, the greater our ability to be more appropriate, right? But again, it's not just that we want to be aware of this. We need to practice these skills, right? And so that daily review, when you do it in that actor and director mode, where you're doing the two together, right? You are now expanding yourself continually, daily, in this way. Yes, this is an incredible thing. This is just huge, just massive. One more thing. There we go. Set to type a little bit. Typing and talking sometimes a little tricky. Makes for lots of time. Okay. Just sharing into things. So Biella's reviewing just what's been happening lately, because lately a lot has been happening in her life. Since the delegates came, everything was like intensified. I mean, she's always had lots of magic in her life. And, even before this, it's constant in her life. Just the way she lives, that's going to be that way. But, in this case now, she's reviewing the latest intensity, what's going on. And the reason she does this is not because she's like looking to remember it. No, she's making sure that she's aware of all that's involved, or at least as much as she's able to be aware. Why? So that she can make sure that she's in attunement with what's going on, right? And being in attunement is a lot involved. you're looking at the flow of things, but you need to be aware of what exactly the flow is, right? Because it's not just like the current in the river, it's just not one stream, right? The flow, like capital F flow, in the bigger picture, this is something that has multiple streams to it, and it's going in multiple directions. There's an overall movement, but there's many sub movements within it as well, right? So this is very important to be paying attention to the flow. And also, it's not obviously just physical things. The physical things are the least important about it, right? What you need to be paying attention to is the abstract movement of things, right? Then you start to see what's really going on. And this is what Biella's doing, right? She's paying attention to the deepness, the overall, the meaning, the significance, that which enhances awareness, that which is making a difference, that which is different, that which is different. Right? So she's paying attention to all these important factors. What she's doing really is the process of attunement, which is paying attention to how things are moving and how they are developing and where they are going and what their intent is, etc., etc. Right? So this is a very powerful thing to be doing, this attunement. Extremely, extremely powerful and valuable and necessary. If we are to live in attunement, we need to be paying attention. Yes. It's like, you've probably seen it in movies or TV shows where somebody's very familiar with the jungle. I mean, real like super jungle, right? Where you can't really see very far and all sorts of stuff going on, right? If you want to survive in that jungle, you need to be paying attention all the time. Yes. If you don't, well, there's lots of dangerous things in jungles like that. The moment you stop paying attention, then you become prey, or get yourself into trouble, or step on something that you shouldn't step into, walk into something. So you've got to constantly be paying attention. Now, we don't live in conditions like that anymore. So our skill of paying this constant attention has waned somewhat. Yes, there are situations in other aspects of life where we need to pay attention like this. But hopefully we're not in them, like in wartime, for instance. You need to have that same attention. But our ability to pay attention doesn't have to simply be stressful all the time, right? It can also be that we can pay attention in a positive way. And this is what she's doing. She's preemptively paying attention in a positive way. But this is all part of attunement, right? It's very important to be aware of that. Paying attention in this way, to what's going on around you is very important. Very, very, very important, right? Also, when it comes to this paying of attention, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but that's just the way it is, I guess, fortunate or unfortunate. Our awareness was cultivated via survival. But we're in a situation now where our focus is evolution, not survival, right? To simply survive at all costs. If your survival sucks horribly, well, then that's pointless, right? So we want to survive in the best possible way, which means evolution. And we can, if we're in that jungle type environment, right? Back in the day, when we were only focused on survival, we were looking out for danger and stress and, well, all right, things like food and stuff like that too, right? Very, very particularly focused survival. But mainly the focus was on, danger, avoiding danger, not getting killed. But, if you're in that type of a situation, if your attention goes to paying attention to all the beauty and marvel and wonder, right? You can see all of that. And if you're paying attention to everything, right? If I'm paying attention to the flowers and the trees and the sound and the rhythm and everything, I'm going to notice tiger when tiger's trying to chomp me. I'm going to see it there amongst the flowers. But if I'm only looking for the danger, that's all I'm going to see, right? There's tiger and other dangerous things. I'm going to miss the flowers. So we can, by shifting to a positive view and an attentive view, we can enjoy all the wonders, and we're going to notice the dangers because they stick out by contrast, right? So we're going to see it anyway. But instead of just living in constant stress and fear and botheration and worry and anxiety and all this stuff, no, we can shift to living in joy. And when something is there, and since we have that fluidity and flexibility and adaptability, we adjust as needed, right? We're not living in fear. Besides which, if you're looking to avoid tiger and you're walking around fearful, tiger is, or lion or whatever, not that lions don't really hunt people, but tigers do. So I use tiger as an example here, or polar bear actually. Uh, 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 that if you walk around fearful, you must well be sending out the signal, I'm prey, I'm prey, I'm prey, I'm prey, right? So you actually make it worse, right? We don't think of it that way, but we need to, right? Since we've had centuries of fearing this, tigers had, well, millennia or whatever ages, right? Tigers had the opportunity to evolve to be able to sense your fear, right? Most predators can sense fear in their prey very clearly, very easily. It's very obvious. You can see it, right? So this is very important to be aware of. Again, attunement, right? So I'm saying when we are fully attuned, and now when you are really fully attuned to the jungle, you're going to know where tiger is before tiger can even see you or smell you, right? Because you're going to feel the rhythm of the jungle, right? You're going to know something is wrong up there, right? So this is, you can be preemptive in knowing what's going on, right? This is a magic of attunement. Plus, when we start to really get into the deepness of attunement, the spiritual aspect, you start paying attention to anomalies, right? So now, like in the jungle, you'll hear the rhythm, you'll hear the sounds of the jungle. That's still fairly close. Tiger might still be fairly close to you and might be downwind from you. And even though tiger's there, tiger knows you there, and you might not be able to get out of the way in time, right? And you have no way of knowing where or when tiger is going to be. However, if you're paying attention to anomalies, something alerted you way before time, before tiger is in range of smelling you, to say, "Oh, don't go this way." And you're like, "Yeah, but why not?" Also something that says go some other way, right? If you live in attunement, you follow that. You don't question because you know there's a moreness to it that you can't see. Yeah? And living by anomalies like that, this enables us to behave according to information that we have no possible way of knowing. This is what anomalies do, right? They alert you or give you information that you have no regular possible way of doing. It's an incredibly spiritual thing, right? It's an amazingness. It's a moreness. It's living with the universe or God or Allah or Krishna or Buddha, whatever your deity is, right? It is a close harmony with that. And it enables you to really be in connection. Now, of course, with the moreness of things. Now, of course, what's very critical in all of this is that you need to be impeccable. Yes. Well, one thing, you need to have impeccable trust in the universe, right? You need to have trust in yourself too, in order to follow the anomalies and pay attention. And you have to have trust in your ability to figure them out, right? That's a skill, it's like a language that has to be learned. And you have to have, the impeccability to be thorough and diligent and scrupulous and conscientious. You can't be lazy, in other words. Oh, well, yeah, there might be danger. I'm getting an alert, but, this anomaly is telling me to go the long way around. I don't want to go the long way around. I'll take my chances. See, that kind of nonsense? Well, okay, going to live that way, you're going to get into trouble. Right? So impeccability is very key, because impeccability is necessary for capital T trust. You cannot have capital T trust without impeccability, because then you just have wishful thinking and hope. Oh, I just trust it'll work out. I don't have to do anything. Don't worry, it'll, and then of course, you probably met people like that who say this all the time. Yeah, I just don't like whatever, things always work out somehow. No, they don't. People come and bail you out because they see you in trouble and you basically living off of their goodness. You're just leeching off of their goodness. And your life's a mess continually. You're always in trouble and, people are bailing you out and helping you out, stuff like that, right? It's not an ideal way to live. It's a big mess, actually, right? But they pretend that, they're so spiritual and just going with the flow and all this, the old style going with the flow, like a tumbleweed. It's complete rubbish and nonsense, right? It's absolute rubbish. It's just basically they're BSing themselves, and they're looking to be indulgent, lazy, and stuff like that, right? Not ideal. We don't want to have that in our lives. And so now that I'm saying, so impeccability, if you're going to have capital T trust, you're only trusting because your impeccability has taken you as far as it can go. Right? So I've done absolutely everything that I can do. What else is there for me to do? The only other thing then, if you really have done everything that you've done. Oh, sorry, TV started playing. Stop playing TV. There we go. If you really have done everything that you can do in whatever the situation is, you've been impeccable. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to trust, capital T, trust, right? So I've done everything I can do. I'm going to proceed, and I have to trust. I have no choice, right? And the reason why we want to leave trust as a last resort, because trust is risk, right? Those people who just say, trust everything will work out, that wishful thinking thing. They're willing to take that risk. They don't even realize it's a risk, but it is, right? So whenever you're trusting, you're taking the risk, taking the chance. We want to minimize that. Right? Absolutely minimize all chances of the unforeseen risk. So by not only being impeccable, well, part of our impeccability is to be strategic also. And of course, part of our impeccability is to live in attunement, because the more you are in attunement with things, the greater your risks, or the less your risks are, the greater your chances of things working out for you, right? I mean, just think of it in a attunement. I say, but I don't understand this thing, attunement. It's kind of like all spiritual and whatever. Like, okay, just think of it from a business point of view. If you have a new product that you want to put out and you want that product to succeed, right? The more in attunement you are with the world, right? With the economy and people's tastes and likes and fashion and stuff like that, right? What's popular and not. The more in attunement with that, the greater the likelihood your product is going to succeed, correct? Because you're going to have a product that is appropriate at the time. In other words, you're in attunement with the tastes and the culture and the likes and the flow and the popularity and blah, 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 right? So if you want to have success in business, you absolutely need to be in attunement, not only with the economy, but also with culture, right? With society, because you need to know what people are liking and, the flow, the patterns. And you also need to know simple things like, well, did somebody else bring out this, somebody else in working on this and, likely to bring it out at the same time as you or just before you, stuff like that, right? So you need to really be in attunement with what's going on. Now, some things you may be able to know, like somebody else is working on it, depending on how secret it is or not, right? So you don't always know all the information. So you could be impeccable and you launch and you just happen to launch and somebody else has launched the day before you and their thing goes viral and yours doesn't and it doesn't work. Okay, well, that happens sometimes, right? So, but impeccability, you don't have to feel bad about it. You did your best, right? And that's very key. Or you did even more than your best because you learned, you grew, right? So doing our best isn't all there is to it. We can do more than our best. We can learn and grow and improve. We don't always think of that, right? So we've got to be careful of this. Do your best. No, do more than your best. In other words, learn what you need to learn what's appropriate. And if you have already cultivated and developed the ability to learn, if you've learned how to learn, then you can do this. So I'm saying that when we get to this attunement, which we're talking about now, and attunement, obviously, the language of attunement is anomalies, right? Because when we are attuning, we are tuning to the whole greater system of everything. We're only aware of a certain amount within that greater system. That which is outside of our awareness, because we don't know everything, right? How do we access that? And sometimes we need to access that. That's where anomalies come into, right? Anomalies allow us to connect to that which is outside of our little bubble, but part of the greater system, right? So that language of the universe, it's how it lets you know what you don't know. Why is it anomalous? Well, because it's outside of your system. It has to be anomalous by definition, because you're looking to connect to that which you don't yet know, right? And which is outside of your thinking, typical comprehension. Very powerful stuff, very, very powerful stuff. All right, so Biella's reviewing, and she gets a knock on the door, and she gets a message on the comm, and messages on the comm for her because of the society and culture she lives in, the new nobility, which is an oral culture, not just oral, but they also like to interact directly, right? They make a preference for this, and this is what they focus on. There are many reasons for it, but it's a very powerful mechanism, right? So it's a very social culture. And so she gets this, and it's anomalous for her. And then, of course, the message itself is, right. I mean, it's sort of the message, just getting a message isn't entirely anomalous because it could just be coincidence, going to happen. They came early, it happened at exactly the same time, or it can still happen. But the message itself is an anomalous message. It's just like kind of quirky. It's sort of like a little off the wall almost. It's like, whoa, this is very clearly anomalous. So she reads the message to the group because she checks, just because she got that at the same time. She checks this as a matter of diligence. Because normally, if it didn't come at exactly the same time, if there'd been just a second or two before, a second or two afterwards, she would say, oh, well, messages are not something that are typically urgent, right? And it's very so unless they marked as urgent, uh, which, well, I guess in the, I suppose you could have, but still, typically the messages aren't urgent and they can wait. And I guess if it really was urgent, people message again and again, and then you go look, hey, I'm getting this constant pinging here. It's like, what's going on? Let me go check. At any rate, but she checks because of the small name. And now we are going through her discussion of this. They're reading the message, right? And so she sends the message is that Boynal says, he asks about being in a loop. And do you see the loop coming quicker and faster, right? And then so she shares the spiral fable, which I read yesterday. Very powerful founding fable, origin fable for the new nobility. Very simple little fable, but really powerful fable. And she, as a commentary on this fable, she says something very profound. She says, however, at some point the spiral begins to get close enough to a point. Then the circle is virtually instantaneous. And this is the circle of getting to know yourself, right? In the beginning, when you get to know yourself, you have to do a lot of uh, consuming of yourself, right? Of kind of awareness of yourself. It's kind of a big circle. It takes a long time to do that. But once you've finished going over yourself and reviewing and understanding everything, then the next time it's a little easier to when you go over and you learn and you grow, right? And every time that circle becomes a little smaller and smaller and tighter, the circle of self-awareness, until at some point where the circle is so tight that it's virtually instantaneous, right? And then even though it's infinite ever after, it's still that virtual instantaneousness is close enough for our awareness to not make a difference, right? It's like I was saying with having a delay in your signal. Yeah. If it's 0.0001 of a second or 0.000001, you can't tell the difference. It's too fast for our awareness anyway, so we can't really notice the difference after a certain point, right? So same thing with this. So our awareness can get to this point where we are at this knowing ourselves very quickly. We still keep improving, but it's minute compared to what it was before, and smaller and smaller as it goes on. Right? And we have this ability to know ourselves or just know what's going on much quicker. And it's a very powerful place to be. So she says, at some point, the spiral begins to get close enough to a point. Then the circle is virtually instantaneous. At that point, self-awareness becomes self-sustaining. The pursuit and attainment of that point is not only a worthwhile challenge, but an attainable one. Even though the range in which this takes place is infinite, the range from the huge circles of our childhoods and early lives to where the circle becomes tight enough to be a virtual point is not. Right? So even though infinity carries on forever, it doesn't matter after a certain point, because the infinity, the improvement it's so tiny every time, that little bit of spiral that's going on, as to not materially make a difference. It's the first part that makes a difference, right? When you get to that point. So this is how we can deal with this problem of infinity. Yes, and like, well, you can't know everything. Yeah, but you don't need to know everything. You simply need to know what's necessary and needed and valuable to know. It's not necessary to know everything, right? I don't have to know everything in the world when I've got Google. I just look it up, right? What I do have to know is how to look it up and how to analyze the data, how to comprehend it, how to understand it, how to read, how to have language, right? So I need certain skills. I don't have to know absolutely everything. Most of what we know in the world is just data. That's just, you can access it, right? You don't have to know everything. That's a very important point. It's a huge point because we can get a bit depressed and say, well, I don't know everything. It's impossible to know everything. Yeah. It's not necessarily impossible to access everything as needed, right? And then when you have anomalies to point you to when you don't know, you have no way of knowing, well, there you go. See, there's no way to resolve this problem. Nice add-on to the spiral fable culture. See, Boynal, another message from Boynal. They're getting like this now. I am seeing much clearer. My heart is being challenged by my mind. I keep thinking I can just stay where I am and build here, but inside I know I won't be happy in this area I was born and raised in. But to try and move without money seems to be scaring the scorn out of me. I feel I am bringing myself to this point quicker and quicker to see. Okay. Okay. It's really interesting. Now, right, if you listen to the before thing, he's saying the same thing again here, right? So I'm just continuing in the middle of the chapter now. It seems to me, specialist said, that he's resolving things himself. He doesn't seem to realize that yet. Yes, yeah, she added, mostly directing her thought at Boynal. Listen to what is without. Simple, 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 simple statement, right? Let's listen to what is without. Yes, you might say, but kind of sounds like advice. It sort of is, but she's also stating the obvious, right? So, I guess it kind of can be either way, but it's not like you must do this, right? Just listen to what is without. It's implied that it's valuable, right? That is how the cycle of the circle is leveraged. See, now it makes sense. When you put it together like that, now it's not the telling, but the sharing, right? It's just saying it in that particular way, but she could just as well say, uh, the cycle of the circle is leveraged by listening to what is without. The statement, the sharing, right? It's not a telling, right? It's a self-evident thing if you pay attention, if you think it through and figure it out, it's self-evident, right? Oh, by the way, if anybody's wondering why I'm wearing the beanie, bad hair day. Anyway, if you don't know me, haven't seen me before, it's the first time, maybe the joke won't matter, but if you do, my little stupid joke. And listen to what is without. That is how the cycle of the circle is leveraged. It is the input from our greater selves or the universe that allows the cycle to ramp up beyond itself. Now think about that. Think about that. Wow, very profound. Yeah. It is the input from our greater selves or the universe or deity of your choice that allows the circle to ramp up beyond itself, the circle of ourselves. How do we get out of being a circle and just doing the same stuff over and over again? We need something added. That's something new, something different, something outside of our comprehension, right? Which is outside of us, what we didn't know before, right? The known is what the cycle is. Even though I might not use everything, I know it's there, right? And for whatever reason, I haven't used it or not used it. It just means my circle might just be a bit slow or not as efficient or effective as it could be. But still, it's still within the known for me. If I really wish to truly expand my circle, I have to add from outside, right? So the circle here is our world as we know it. Yes, our world as we know it. When we get input from outside, that world expands. That world changes. That world is now different because something that wasn't in it before is now in it. Yeah? Just anomalies bring that to what is in. This is what we're trying to do with attunement. Our world, the world as we know it, is not what the world is, right? The world does not work the way we think it does. This is such a profound understanding and awareness, which we tend to really believe when we get to be adult. We think we know how the world works. No, no. Sorry. If you really pay attention to that you don't know how, you'll quickly realize how true that is, and you'll be quite astonished. Like, oh my goodness, I really thought I knew how to work that. Then your life changes very profoundly. It is the input from our greater selves or the universe that allows the circle to ramp up beyond itself onto the path of the spiral, that ever tightening spiral. Don't want to just be going around in circles and loops, right? Being ourselves, being ourselves, being ourselves. And it's just, okay, being the same, having the same type of life. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's not a terrible thing necessarily. You can have a fun, joyful life. But, a fun, joyful life is not all there is. Okay? Might be satisfied with that, fair enough, no problem, right? But if you want a little more, all right, then be aware that we want to get out of the circle onto a spiral. Yes? And especially that ever tightening spiral. It becomes a spiral drilling its way to the magic of that connection. Wow, what a little poetic way of saying it. Paying attention to anomalies is the key. They are the incredible levers from outside the circle of ourselves. Fantastic. Very beautiful what Biella says there. Very profound, really very profound. That's one of those things that we can you can take out and put it into, like, extractions from a book, like as profound quotes. That's the whole little paragraph there. Boynal sent another message. I have concluded the universe is calling me out, but it is me who has to accept this and listen to myself. Hey, I am seeing this. Fear is a great beast. I seem to get to the point of pushing through, then I cave in. Boynal continued. I do know it's going to continue until I face it, and it's getting quicker and quicker. Right now, he's also talking about this. He had an anomalous message that came through. Oh, I thought we got to that. Anyway, he got this anomalous message. I think I'm going over what I did yesterday already, but all right. We'll see. We'll see. Actually, you know what? I'm not screen sharing. Let me screen share for those who are watching this later. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just go back and then I'll go slowly through it, and just you can get the whole chapter. You can just pause. You know what I mean? And you'll be able to read the whole chapter if you want to. It's all the others review, then the two things happening simultaneously, and then the whole group arrives early. Ayla, Ursula, Camillus, all the other delegates, and the group that's her friend, which is Nora and Akia and Hamilton, Calvin and Marco and Shaw and everybody. All very powerful. Let's see, here's Nora, there's Akia talking. They're talking also, they did some research, and there's lots of anomalies with Boynal. It seems to be from a world that nobody has ever heard of, and stuff like this, and just odd stuff, right? So Biella tells a story, a young man's story, a very powerful little story there. But anomalies, really, a very anomalous thing that happened to the young man and changed his life, because he did pay attention. It took him a little while at first, right? He's very busy, but it kept on coming. It kept on coming, and he couldn't ignore it. Right now, of course, at some point, if you do insist on ignoring it and you're consciously aware, and you say, whatever, and once it's gone into your conscious awareness and then you ignore it, then it will stop coming, right? So you have to be very careful. Those are very precious gifts, which, if you open a gift that's come and you send it back, that's a big difference to it, continually trying to be delivered, and they need a signature, right? And you just never sign for it. But when you do, you sign and open it and you send it back. Well, it's not going to be sent again, right? So this is a very important thing to be aware of and understand that this is kind of how the universe happens. It may try in some other way, but at some point, you're saying, look, I don't want to grow. I don't want to learn, right? So this is a big deal. It's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. So we have to be very cautious and pay attention. And, that's why most people don't have anomalies in their lives, because they have received them, and they just like they poo-pooed it or minimized it, or say, I don't want this stuff in my life, and they're scared of it and all sorts of stuff. And for some people, they don't want learning and growing. It's too much for them. They don't want that responsibility. They don't want that, at least in their minds, the stress of it, the effort, and all this stuff, right? Yeah. So this is it's a big deal. Yeah. Well, uh, I don't remember where we were. Well, let's see. Oh, wait, way past it. Okay. See. Oh, so she hasn't told the story yet. Okay, I thought we got there. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. But we've gone past the stories already, but that's Sunday when I was doing this. Yeah. Oh, there's much magic to come. Okay. Uh, so I haven't read the story yet. Oh, well, come on now. Where was I? Here we go. Here we go. Paying attention to anomalies is the key. They are the incredible levers from outside the circle of ourselves. Boynal sent another message. I have concluded the universe is calling me out, but it is me who has to accept this and listen to my soul. A is now responding to Biella. I am seeing this. I am seeing this. Fear is a great beast. I seem to get to the point of pushing through, then I cave in. Boynal continued. I do know it's going to continue until I face it, and it's getting quicker and quicker. Boynal added, it's bringing me to the bottom quite quickly now. Nature has a wicked sense of humor. He just doesn't want to face and deal with the awful truth of his situation, Norma said, giggling. We all seem reluctant to at times, she added, giving Camelius a gentle nudge in the ribs. Is that right, Uncle C? She giggled merrily. Camelius scowled at her, but only made her giggle more and hug his arm. And I love this interaction with Nora and Aki and Camelius, right? Because this is the thing with Camelius too. He also doesn't want to face the awful truth. The awful truth that he's in a situation of so much moreness and it's blowing his brains away. But he can't let go of, his status of being at the top of the pile on his culture, his intellectual. Um, it's a university world, right? That whole system. He can't get out of this to shift like Ursula does. And he says to her, I don't have the courage that you have. He actually says it. So I agree, but the universe calling him out part, he looked me added down. There is more to it. Yes, said Mia. Seems like a good time for another young man's story. She smiled and began. A young man and his heart at a restaurant at one time, a very busy restaurant. People from all over the world visited the restaurant. It was a place with many visitors. It was in a place with many visitors. The young man was unusually young to own a restaurant. And he was unusually earnest. He started to notice something interesting. This capital E, earnest. Every now and then a customer would grab his arm, always in the same place, on his forearm, just below the elbow, right here like this, by the way, right? You know, the people are sitting down and they would just, as you walk by, bam, man, they'd grab and they had this like grip on it, like, if I had to break free from that, it would cause a disruption. There's no way you could do without really causing a major disruption and being profoundly rude. Right? They stopped me, and it was like super busy. Where I really didn't have the time for this. I mean, this in that restaurant, I really learned time management because there was way more to do than there was time. So I really had to learn strategies for time management, time compression, efficiency, anticipation, etc. It was a fantastic university for many things. But that particular skill was one I consciously made an effort to learn in that situation. So when you are under such time pressure, when you get stopped like that, boy, it can kind of put you back, cause some disruption. But anyway, so they would grab this just below the elbow. They would hold his arm, not letting him go, even though it was very busy and he had much to do. They grabbed him and held him, saying, "If I was your age, I would be." Always they said the same in the beginning. The details that followed varied, but always they said, "If I was your age, I'd be." They said it with a fierce earnestness. They said it like they were trying to imprint the sharing upon the young man, right? Or into the young man. It's just, man, that earnestness, that fierce earnestness, it was something else, right? And not something that you hear from people, right? That you don't hear it from them. You don't hear that kind of earnestness just out of the blue from strangers very often. That's very rare. Right? A fierce earnestness, not just a regular earnestness, a fierce earnestness. They said it like they were trying to imprint the sharing upon and into the young man. I must add there, and into. Really trying to put it inside me. This happened regularly. At first, he was so busy. These interactions did not stay in his awareness, but they continued. He could ignore the pattern that developed no longer. It was beyond coincidence. Weeks passed and still he was grabbed. The young man finally took note and considered. What were they really telling him? What was the universe? The young man realized. Trying to get it. He reflected, going over what lay behind the stories, made an effort to listen more intently to the customers who grabbed his arm. And this is capital H here. And to hear them, capital H here. He listened beyond the story they were telling. He listened to their hearts, hearing the same abstract story every time. That's very key, right? This ability to abstract. This is really what made a difference for the young man. A very profound skill, one that is absolutely integral to understanding anomalies, connecting to anomalies, and also attunement. Attunement isn't just a physical thing, and it's beyond like the attunement to business and culture, right? It's attunement to the abstract. This is where we start to really get into actual attunement, not just knowing what's going on in the regular world, right? We need to know what's going on in the moreness world too, right? Hearing the same abstract story every time. He heard a lament. He heard a lament for their lost youths. His customers were all very successful people, were from the rich and successful of the world. They wanted for nothing except their lost youths. Deep, deep regret permeated their stories. All of them had come to the realization they had opportunities in their youth to do what their hearts had begged them to do. Yet they had not. They had denied their hearts and instead chased success. Not good, not good, not good, not good. That's capital H heart. And instead chased success. Now they had that success. They found it hollow. For it was not filled with the longing of their hearts. They believed it was too late for them. When the young man realized this, he heard their stories. They were not telling him a story of what had happened. They were bestowing on him a warning and more. They desperately wanted the young man to avoid making the mistakes they had. They wanted to at least know that somebody had followed this, right? Even so vicariously, they were looking to satisfy their lost youth, this lost intent through someone else. Right? It's like the urge with DNA. You can't do it yourself. You pass it on to your kids. The same intent, same urge, right? And through that, they kind of get a resolution, as it were. Right? It's a very big deal. This young man was profoundly stirred and moved by this. He considered again. He could not ignore this extraordinary communication. It was too uncommon, too unusual, and too calm. Even though the restaurant was extremely busy and successful, he and his heart decided to get out, to leave it all behind, to step away from that life completely. It was the most difficult thing the young man and his heart ever did. The energy it required to break from the momentum of their lives was enormous. Right? And even though they knew to get out, it was so difficult. And because this was new and unusual and different and following anomalies, it took them longer than they need to. And because of this taking much longer, eventually the situation came where, it wasn't the most ideal way to get out. It was less than ideal. But that was also wonderful because from that, other things developed, and they didn't just get out of the restaurant. They got out of regular, ordinary living entirely. Right? The whole situation started a chain of events, which is a fantastically magical story. Right? We're going to hear a little bit of it later on, from where they end up in the desert. Right? Again, by attunement. And this is really profound. And so they didn't just, that was the start of getting out of the sort of regular way of living. And they ended up in this living by attunement. Unbelievably profound, right? There's many stories related to this, but still, we're just hearing the key parts here. Let's see if there are any comments. Right? The energy it required to break free from that momentum was enormous. It's really a big deal, to change our patterns like that. It's quite astonishing how big a deal it is. It's hard to realize until you actually do it. You know what? I wonder if you guys can hear me. I think I'm talking to myself here, and I didn't put the headset on. I forgot all about it, so I don't think you've been hearing me very well. Huh. This may be just a whole big waste of time here now. Oh well. Oh well. So it goes. The energy it required to break free from the momentum of their lives was enormous, but they did so at great cost to themselves, or so it seemed at first. The young man and his heart were completely earnest in their desire to live a life that was in accord with the inputs from the universe, to live in attunement. In other words, those stories, week after week, had been too undeniable to ignore. What followed was fantastic. The young man and his heart started upon an adventure beyond anything they could have imagined. Marvel and wonder followed marvel and wonder, and always, every situation they found themselves in, every circumstance, every adventure, was always filled to the brim with learning moreness that seemed to be particularly just for them. Yeah, totally customized, to personalized for just them. That's an incredible thing. When you live in attunement, that is it. The magic is it is so
incredibly intimately personal. It's hard to believe. They are still on this adventure. And now, if they were to grab someone's arm, young or old, they would say, I did follow my heart and still do. It is never too late. It is the most critical thing we can do, for it starts a whole new life we cannot imagine unless we live it. Yes, and that should be a capital L, live there. Right. The end. All right, so I'll continue in a second. Yes, to comment on this point of living in attunement. Right now, yes, for the young man and his heart, and uh, right, and I can only speak directly for the young man. I mean, I can somewhat speak for for the heart at the time, but the heart in this story is both referring to a person that was there at the time, but also as an abstract representation, right? So the young man's heart is not only a person, and that can also change, not necessarily the same person, um, but also it is, the world, the earth, nature, things like that, right? And or his soul, his spirit, right? So many ways to understand this part of the heart. But the point I want to make is about uh, living in attunement, right? Now, the path for the young man was one of unusualness, adventure, and I say for the young man here because at that point his heart was kind of pulled along in this to a large extent. Yes, there was choice and deliberation, but also to a large degree, not really, right? So, but anyway, that doesn't really matter. That's just how it is when things are. You get caught up in things, but nonetheless, right? When you For the young man, the point I'm trying to make is that the path that they were on was a path of really wild and extreme adventure, right? I suppose it can be more extreme, but for them it was extreme. At any rate, and you might say, yeah, but you know what? I want to live in attunement and live my life and pay attention to anomalies and so on. But I don't want to have some radical wild thing and live in the desert without water and electricity and toilets and phones and cars and all of this stuff. It's like, man, do I have to go through all of that? No, no, not at all. That just happened to be so for them, right? Other people, you may end up, your path of attunement, and you may stay in the same job that you're doing and, go to the office every day. It doesn't matter. But when you're in attunement, the only thing that will make a difference is that this, going to the office will now have more significance and power and moreness and magic to it than without living in attunement, right? And and this is not something I'm just saying, because this I know to be so from participants of Way of Impeccability, right? Almost every single time, and it would come twice a week, 2 hours, twice a week, right? So 4 hours a week, right? They would come and we'd go over and do the sessions and everything, and every time, always, I would inquire as to what's been happening. Yes, and most of the time, my part of it would be to point out the magic, right? To connect it to the intent of what we'd been going over and what we've been paying attention to and how it materialized in their lives to give them the opportunity to apply and practice. Unbelievable. Every single time they would tell me of what's going on and the stuff that happened. And like, sometimes it was like, they're talking about like a big problem and hassle. I said, yeah, but didn't that just give you the opportunity? Oh, right. So once they started to see it, their lives didn't change in any of its typical details. Somebody from the outside would see no difference. But internally, they started to live not in a boring, regular, stressful, difficult life, or just a ordinary, okay, happy life, not too, but in a life of magic and wonder, right? So you don't have to have wild and magical adventures, that you can have non-wild magical adventures, right? It's all magical. You don't have to go through that. It just happened to be the path for the young man, right? And just, his particular path. and the way he had approached this path, this was particularly powerful, and there's very particular personal things involved, right? Which, for somebody who's very earnest, for instance, right? Um, all through his childhood, constantly the theme and the refrain was, if you don't do your homework, if you don't do this, if you don't conform to societal norms, you're going to end up in with nothing, or on the street specifically, right? That, some mess, some trouble and all this. Well, he did, and it wasn't the end of the world. He did end up living on the street homeless, and it was fantastic. It was a really brilliant experience. It was really awesome. It was fun. Yeah. Same with the desert, right? So that was an undoing of a pressure that was in his psychology, right? And so now also the realization, the freedom. If you've been told all your life, if you don't do this, then this terrible thing will happen. When the terrible things happen and it's not terrible, aren't you not liberated then? Profoundly liberated. Profoundly liberated. And then also I mean, that's just one part of it. Also to have the opportunity to apply your philosophy that you worked your entire life up to that point, your entire conscious life, from age 10, right? Every single moment you working on developing this philosophy of living. Now you're in a situation that's extreme, and you now get to put this philosophy of yours of living. It's a philosophy of application. It's a philosophy of doing. It's a philosophy of strategy. But most of all, it's a philosophy of application, doing, right? Now you get to apply it and do it in an extreme situation, right? Do you not know when you are then successful in that situation and you not only survive, but you thrive? Can you not have confidence in your own philosophy now? It's been tested under the most rigorous of circumstances multiple times, not just once. You can say, well, all right, you got through it one time, maybe you got lucky, whatever. Yeah. Well, multiple times, no such thing as luck, right? So at least when you can start predicting your luck, then is it luck? No. Right. So this is really powerful. So for the young man, this was very important because, he'd gone to those extremes of actually developing this full, comprehensive, cohesive, sophisticated philosophy of living. Yeah? A very big deal, which is what we are seeing being applied in the story, right? That's the point of this book and the series is to not write out the philosophical treatise and academic thing. Nah, that's boring. Yeah. Show it in action. It's much more valuable, right? And you can put it all together for yourself through application. When you have to learn things like this, it just goes into memory, it goes onto your hard drive, and that's the end of it, right? But when you are living it together like this and you're immersing in the story, it has a greater impact. If you now really want to make this valuable, then go over it and go over it again, and use this story as a textbook for living, right? And use it and apply it in that way, and then it's going to be fantastically powerful. Because the key to real change, personal change, is to make it your own. That's the key, right? If you want to learn a new way of living, and you can't just have the ideas and you're like, okay, you got to live in attunement. All right. If you know that it's in your memory, it's on your hard drive, that doesn't change your operating system. It doesn't one iota. You have to put it into action. You have to apply it, and you have to make it your own, which means that your operating system changes. Yeah. That's what making it your own means. It's yours. Doesn't matter where it came from originally. You've made it yours. Yeah. That's very powerful. Very important. So you can do this, and this story has so much in it. Sometimes it just was like one little section, one couple of paragraphs that are enough to really change a life profoundly if one really pays attention, right? So this following your heart, I did follow my heart and still do. It is never too late. It is the most critical thing we can do, for it starts a whole new life we cannot imagine unless we live it. The end. Actually, on this point, I want to read a little poem here real quick. Let's see. Saul's poems, and let's see. I actually made a little video of this, and And it's a very powerful little video. Yeah. Yeah, just very cool. Where I read the poem to the video, and a nice sound, and it's a video a friend of mine shot. I added music to no, the music that they did, but I got permission to use it from. Anyway, so a Moreness revealed our inward journey, looking back, seeing forward in the now. The name of the poem is "Today is the Day for Self-Change." Today is the day we'll look back on as in the day. Later never comes. Today is the day to plant our tree of real self. Today is the day we'll look back on and say, back in the day, I took action. I did something huge, even though to some it seemed small. I planted the seed, my seed of real self. But I did more back in the day. I watered that seed, tended, nourished my seed. As seedling grew to sapling, I nourished my real self daily, constantly, never allowing any opportunity for my treeling to cease growing through neglect. I persisted while my roots of real self grew deep. Then, back on a day, I found my tree of real me, no longer needed myself, and I became my tree of real. Yes, back in the day, I did something. Now, every day is the day of real me, the young man. I just love that poem. I just love that poem. It's very powerful and deep. And there's a little add-on to this poem. Now, perhaps this should go first and not second, but it's just a reminder poem, right? And this little second part of this little combo is called "Where Has the Day Gone?" Day, day, slip sliding away, 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 tick, tick into night. Swallowed and lost, forgotten the light. Day, day, gone away, gone away. It is, it is. What can I say? Hmm. Well, sad poem, yeah? Oh, sad poem. Don't have that be your lament, yes? Yeah. So maybe I should switch the order here. I mean, that's just the way they came out, but uh, that really was what those people in the restaurant were saying to the young man when they grabbed his arm, right? My day has gone away. I did not do something in the day. The young man took that to heart and he did something in the day. Actually, he'd already started doing things before that, but this was a shift to the application of doing it, right? Going all the way, maximum, right? Not just doing it on the surface, no, total maximum. As Biella finished, the attribution displayed along with the story in the message from Boynal, from Tales of the Young Man, Stories, Myths, and Fables of the New Nobility collected works. Now, by the way, that's a real work. Yes, it's not just a quote in the story here. It's an actual work that exists, right? That has these tales of the young man in it. At least there's the young man's story, there's the young man's story, and those are the full detailed all of these incidents written out. But this tales of the young man, stories, myths, and fables of the new nobility. Um, this is a is a chapter of this work, right? The collected works, right? So this actually exists, and I'll put them together. I mean, if you look at my quote file, you'll see what I mean here, right? If we just scroll up in this a little bit here, and you look at the attributions, you see fine, noble, Biella, and okay, these need to be assigned to work still. But if you look at some of them here now, well, you see there's uh, or these are all now to individuals, but you see from insights to the new nobility. Now, many of these need to be still put into that, but if I keep scrolling up, you'll see more of these attributions to work specifically. And this is a huge file. It's got tons of stuff in it, right? You see how much there is? So in many of these, which are more quote-orientated works, all of these quotes will will get sorted into these different works, yeah, as appropriate where they belong, right? So these are very real works. I mean, yes, all the information for it just needs to be sorted still. And I have more in other files, longer stories. These are just more on the quotes. This is my quote file specifically, right? So it's kind of just a fun part of it, where when I do publish this, I'll also publish at least a significant portion. Might not be all of them, because some of them are more like novels that has to be written out. I'll show you a list of these in a second here. Uh, oh, did I scroll that far up so quickly? Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh. But, oh, I think I may have gone. Oh, here we go. I have a list of these works. There we go. Yeah, see, supplemental works, right? These first ones are all, you know, more like really stories, and then yeah, they are. See, quotes of the young man collected, and there's all young man ones, but these are more known like perspectives of the new nobility, unanswered questions of the new nobility, mysteries, musings, observations, insights, practicalities, practical applications, safeguards, constant reminders, conundrums, right? There's a whole ton of these here. And again, some of them will be fragmented works just because of the nature of the mystery of the story, that this has come to us from another time and another galaxy. So some didn't come through fully. So some of these might just have a few entries in them. But yeah, see, yes, Tales, Myths, and Fables of the New Nobility. This will be a substantial work. And when I do publish this, I will publish these along with that, right? And as each one comes out, I'll publish more of these, right? But certainly on this first one, since it's mentioned and there's a couple of tales and myths in it, and some which are just referenced in the story. You can then go and read this for yourself in this. Yeah. So I think that's very, very cool, at least for me. You know, I've seen these works, you know, with authors, they make reference to these works, like in Dune, right? Princess Irulan, she has all these histories, right? And they quotes from it. But you can't go look up the actual work, which would be really cool. Yeah. So I thought that would be really great. So and well, and this is what I will do, right? I have all of these different ones here. There's a lot of them, but because you're dealing in a very substantial world in a universe, it's very comprehensive, right? So there's a ton of these. You know, this is a Golf with Grace by Biella Noble. That's a very, I mean, a very spiritual book, but also as a actual golf instruction book. It's profound. It's really awesome. Yeah, very different. So all of these powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Yeah, okay. That's me being organized. Yeah, you see all the different stuff, right? And now I'm getting into other works that I've done. So yeah, and there's all the. It just I like to just put the characters down. Clara's Class is a parallel series. I love Clara's Class and love writing it. It's just just wonderful stuff. Anyway, I get off topic here, right? So this attribution comes because she just sent the fable or the story, and because she's corresponding via typing with Boynal, right? Even though she's using voice to text, but it's still typing, right? So she copies and pastes this, and as she copies and pastes the story, right, which is now read to everybody as well, this attribution automatically pops up. Dream Deer and the delegates had quietly joined them, just as Biella had started telling the story. Dream now said, "Who wants to be hollow in life? Sounds so cold and empty. Why have success if in return gives you anguish with a draining heart?" Dream Deer has a very particular way of speaking, and it's just fantastic, right? And because of this particularity of her style, right? And you know, she's a native English speaker. You know, she you might think she's not from this, but the actual Dream Deer is a real person, and I was sharing the story up until this point in real time as I was writing it, right, with a few of my friends. One being Camelius, the other being Haler, and Dream Deer, right? And Uh, no, Boynal, not really. I don't think so. And maybe. I don't remember how Boynal came into things. It's just one of those magical things. But Boynal is also based on a real person. Now, Boynal is a fictional character as a delegate. The conversation, the text that Boynal says is real. And the same way, Dream is my friend. Her name's not Dream Dear. Her name was Vicky. I called her Vicky Dream. When I shared this story, right, and Boynal stuff, right, this at this point in time, right, I just pasted it into, because it was all via messenger text, right, and I pasted it in. This was her comment. What a fantastically awesome comment, yeah. Just wonderful. So Dream Vicky was just absolutely, it changed her life being made into this character and being in the story, and in a big way, because she's early in the story, right? So it was a very big deal for her. Dream's comments summed it all up beautifully. She had said it in a way that did not invite further comment, seemingly content to simply comment from the back. The group respected her unspoken communication. But wait, Ursula said excitedly, pointing at the com. You mean there is somewhere I can find all the stories and go and read them? Earlier in the stories, it's been established that Ursula is is a big fan of the young man. Now, Ursula is the created character all the way, right? As appropriate, right? So again, a blend and a balance of things, right? Biella laughed good-naturedly. Yes, she said, holding her pause for just a second, teasing Ursula a bit. And no. Smiling, she explained, yes, there is a new nobility library. You could, if you really, really wanted to, go there and read up. But it is not the way of the new nobility. We much prefer the tales are come by organically, as appropriate. Right, now, this is really huge. Okay, well, I'll finish the whole paragraph and then elaborate. We have found they end up being much more meaningful that way. They remain connected and associated with the circumstances surrounding the telling of it and the particular connection to the listener. And Biella smiled. There is more. There is always more, came the chorus as they all laughed, right? Because this has become a little kind of a meme type of a thing, because Biella always says stuff and talks, and then she says, there's more, because it's just how things come. And it wasn't trying to affect anything, just the way she expressed it. And just, she had to say, she's made a whole powerful point, but whoa, 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 whoa. Yes, well, I know what I've said has got a lot of moreness to it, but there's more, right? So just hang in there a little bit, right? Don't assume this is all of it, right? And so then, Aki and Nora started this thing of saying, there's always more. And then everybody picked up on this. So now it's like this chorus, right? As they all laughed. Biella continued. Uh, okay, so yes, she's explaining this, why it's so important that the stories are come by organically. But I just wanted to comment on a point that is very important here. Ursula is this big fan of the young man, right? And she's very eager now and enthusiastic about knowing more about the young man. But the new nobility say, Ursula, take that eagerness and that enthusiasm, and instead of shifting it to wanting more in quantity, transfer it to connecting to more in terms of quality, to connect to the moreness of it. Yes? Because if you connect to the more of quantity, what are you going to go and do? Right? Should you now go to the library? You're going to read all these stories and be satisfied. But what is going to be satisfied? Just your curiosity, really. Right? Are you truly going to change by absorbing, you know, uh, uh, decades worth of learning and experience and living and profoundness, within a couple of days or weeks or whatever? Yeah? No, no, it's too much. You're going to be overloaded. And then the magic of the stories is gone once you've read them, because now you kind of know them, right? So because you're pursuing it in that context just to know what's in the story from a story point of view. No, when you hear it organically, it's going to come up in context like this, and it's going to have specific, particular significance as to why this has come up. And typically, it's going to come up in your life at a time where there's a deeper appropriateness to you. Yeah, that's just how things work, especially on Nobelia. So now you're going to listen to the story through the filter of what's going on inside you. Yes, now there's going to be a very particular pertinence and relevance. In other words, you're going to extract things which are connecting to what is you need to know and use and apply and learn and practice and put into practice then. Yes, rather than if you read them all, you are looking to now suddenly apply a whole lifetime's worth of stuff uh, right away. It's too much, right? It's going to get lost, it's going to go waste. And this is very powerful, but also this skill, this ability to say, I can put off, delay gratification because I'll get more that way. This is an incredibly powerful skill, right? They actually done many, many tests of this in various ways, but the essential test is this. They tell kids, okay, you get one sweet now that you can eat right away, or if you wait and don't eat the sweet, you'll get 2 or 5 or whatever, you'll get more later on, right? The kids that were able to wait had a profoundly different lives, less trouble free, more successful in whatever measure of success you want to measure it, more together, more all sorts of benefits. And they've done this study in various ways over decades, right? Long-term studies where they followed up on the people to see where they ended up. I suspect some of those studies are still going on, right? So this ability to put sensibility over gratification, it is an incredibly profound ability. And why I'm mentioning it so specifically here is because it is absolutely fundamental to attunement. Attunement often asks us to act in ways which we cannot see the benefit even, but we know it's going to be some unknown benefit. We know it's going to be later, and it asks us to act on that, right? So we have to learn to act without agenda, which is taking this deferred gratification for greater benefit, even to the next level, right? To say that, hey, can I learn to act without agenda? Why? Because it's right. I don't know what the rightness is, but I know it's going to be right. Living in attunement is all about that capital R rightness, not rightness in a right or wrong moral sense, but rightness in the full sense of appropriateness. Yeah? So it's a profound skill. So this is another reason why, Biella says, yes, there's this library, but it's not mentioned specifically here, right, in Biella's point, because again, it's conversation and things flow. You can't always say everything in every conversation, right? It'll be too long. So things come out as they come out, right? I mean, Biella is pretty good at being fairly comprehensive in this, yeah. And you may be able to infer it from what she says. This point about acting without the agenda and deferred gratification, right? A greater appropriateness, in other words. Biella continued. Right. The connection to the stories via this method allows for repetition. This method of, in other words, not going and reading them up in the library, but allowing them to come organically. Right. Right. We can then hear the same stories over and over. Right. Why? Because each time the purpose and relevance is different. Right. Each telling is slightly different. Different connections, different associations, different pertinence and relevance. It takes many, many listenings before one usually feels confident enough to retell the story. Yeah. I mean, typically, if you read a story, especially if it's a fairly short story, right, so what was the story about? You can kind of tell them. Yeah. But if you've heard it, not so easy. Yeah. At least not with some measure of accuracy, and especially not with some degree of being able to connect to the moreness of the story, because a lot of these stories are like fables. It's not all spelt out in detail. You have to extract that moreness, right? So this is an incredibly powerful thing. And of course, you're also sustaining the magic. You're not just taking it and absorbing it. You read it, maybe reread it, and then it's kind of gone. It's there in your brain. You've seen it. Okay, move on, because your brain is now geared towards newness as the value, not value as the value, right? So the new nobility said, no, wait a second. We want value as the value, not newness as the value. Yeah, not novelty, right? which is how our culture is kind of set up, right? It's not the culture of Nobelia, but our culture here is very much geared towards that, right? Towards newness and novelty. It takes many, many listenings before one usually feels confident enough to retell the story. There needs to be sufficient overlap of the salient details to provide confidence in having the details of it. Through this method, we come to live those stories, to connect to the spirit of them, not just the facts and details. And also, when you're hearing these stories orally from different people, they're all going to have their own way of telling it. Yes. So, yes, sometimes it may be fairly accurate to what's written down, but they're going to adjust it as appropriate to the circumstance. Right? And that's fantastic. Right? So you need to have this knowledge of this next. We identify the extra abstract elements. Without identifying the abstract elements, you can't truly tell the story beyond the story, the capital S story, right? Which is like all fables and myths and things like that. They have a usually a moral purpose to them or some significance, some point of learning, right? And that's all via abstract. Yes, it's not about the details; it's about the abstract. Right? Every time new nobles re-hear, they approach what they absorb from the point of view of how am I applying the essential elements? This is the most critical element of these stories, right? Application. It's absolutely every single thing about the new nobility and about this particular story and the philosophy of appropriateness or the A plus philosophy. It is always about application, right? So you might even call it that's why it's the A plus, because there are all sorts of A terms, right? Like attunement could be the philosophy of attunement, you could call it. The philosophy of appropriateness includes that, obviously, right? So this is very key, but you can also call it the philosophy of application. Yeah, if you want to. That's why it's called the A plus philosophy. There's just all these, awareness, alignment. There's all sorts of magical appreciation, adventure. I mean, I can go on. There's dozens of them, right? Very cool. All these power terms that happen to start with A, and predominantly and the most important ones like appropriateness and awareness and attunement, right? All start with A. I suppose it's better that way. Oh, I need to get in character, but yeah. I suppose it's better that way. Ursula said with an exaggerated, glum, sulky expression. I wasn't able to do it because I'm amused at this, right? But she's hamming it up a bit because this is a playful point coming out, right? So she puts on this fantastically exaggerated, glum, sulky expression, curling the group into delighted laughter. Also, it's very skillful self-awareness on Ursula's part. Yes, by grumbling about it, right? She gets to release the energy of disappointment. Right? She was very excited. Oh, I'm going to go to the library. But then Ursula comes with this good point, which, I'm sorry, Biella comes with this really profound, okay. And she understands it, right? I mean, because she's now understood the moreness, and she has the ability to tune into the moreness. This is grasp this fact that there is moreness. So she lets go of her old desire, right? And shifts. But there's always that part of us a little bit disappointed that wants to complain because this is how we grew up. This is the first thing that we learned and were rewarded for doing was complaining. So in this grumbling, in this exaggerated, fun, playful way, the histrionics of it, right? She releases that discontent, that grumble, that botheration, right? She just releases it now, right? And it's very strategically, very sensible, very powerful. And she's learned this from the new nobility, from Biella already, right? This multi-purposing of things, yes? So I suppose it's better that way, Ursula said with an exaggerated, glum, sulky expression, curling the group into delighted laughter. Biella was thrilled to see Ursula's fun side coming out, or more correctly, an entirely new and different Ursula being born, emerging daily. So fantastic, right? Ursula has taken this to heart completely and utterly. She has fully changed with the appropriateness of the situation. She is now so in attunement that she can do things like this. She did what is the new nobility do. When you recognize the full truth of something, you change. You don't and ah because, well, it's a bit difficult, it's awkward, it's going to make such a lot of paperwork or whatever, right? No, you can't do that. Is this a reason for you not to engage in the profound because it's a lot of extra paperwork and forms to fill in, and it's totally irrelevant. Right? Totally and utterly irrelevant. I mean, Ursula changes her entire life completely and utterly in a most profound way, right? She gives up her old life entirely. She's got a lot of business interests and everything, right? It's all stuff she's got to deal with, and she doesn't care. You know, it's not of issue to her, right? Doesn't matter because what really matters in her life is this deep change, right? This is what she really, really, really wants, and that's what you got to do. And that's what a lot of those people in the story, in the restaurant with the young man, they didn't do that. They didn't do what Ursula's doing, right? They didn't follow their hearts. They didn't, and so they lost out, right? They got the other stuff, but it was hollow in the end. But I'm going to pester you for more and more stories, she said resolutely, folding arms folded determinedly in the character of a small child. Yeah, very funny, Ursula. Very funny. Another message from Boynal appeared. And this joyfulness, this fun, this playfulness, and especially histrionics, it's a very big part of the new nobility. We've seen it in other parts of the story where Biella kind of does it too, and they have fun with this to a great extent, right? Another message from Boynal appeared. Okay, I'm going to stop here where this another message, right, appeared in this point, and we'll carry on with this tomorrow. I just there's a lot going on, and I don't want to read too much here because I'm keen for Bina to join in on this. She's already missed so much of this. I'm keen for her to join and have more of it. So this will be very cool. It'll be very cool. All right. On that note, I'm going to listen to the recording and see if the audio is in the first part is actually audible because I didn't have the headset on. It wasn't too far away, so maybe it can be heard. But if it's a mess, then I'll just delete the whole thing and we'll just redo it tomorrow. All right. On that note, I shall stop screen sharing and end video. Let me just refresh Facebook, see if anybody's making any comments. And maybe I missed. Nobody's on right now, so it doesn't matter. All right. Very cool. Yep. Nothing doing. Nothing doing. Yeah. All right. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow then. And we'll continue with this magical story. I'm really enjoying this. Very cool. I was a little concerned with this chapter because in my memory, I haven't reread it very recently. And in my memory, I thought, I had some doubts about the potency of this chapter. But now that I get into it, no, it's absolutely very necessary, very powerful, very important. Because it's showing the capital H hearing. This chapter is all about capital H hearing, right? And everything that goes into it. So this is an exemplification of capital H hearing, right? And now it's a subsection of the whole Moreness project, much like the psychology of the superiority paradigm is, and we saw much of that in the interactions with Camellius. So, but I didn't want to make it the story so a lot about that, right? But it's important that it is represented, and here we really see a full exemplification of it, right? And particularly with how peculiar Boynal's sharing is. It's really very odd. At the time, it struck me as profoundly odd, and I saw it as anomalous, and I had to include it because it's so anomalous, right? So it's a gift from the universe, really, gift from the universe. All right, and it's interesting that both Heiler and Boynal have also disappeared. The actual people behind them, they've also disappeared from my life, much like the characters have. Isn't that fascinating? I'm still in connection with Camellius, and we have a good connection every now and then, but not as fully as we did once. Again, it's the real life reflecting the story. It's just fascinating to me. Absolutely incredible. All right, I better go. On that note, end meeting.